So outside.
Good. Endo means inside, exo means outside.
inside the blood.
Yeah, yeah, you're telling something. Okay, so as the name indicates, endocrine and exocrine, they are mainly related to the duct system as well as the chemicals. You said the chemicals released are called as hormones. Okay, when they are poured into the duct. So if you see here, this is an exocrine gland. This is related to this. Here, all the cells are producing some chemical substance, hormones, and they are released. They are released, not hormones exactly. They are released. They are releasing the chemicals, and they are poured into this duct. This is the duct from where it will flow into the blood or directly into the surface. So this is the duct here, which is pouring these chemicals here. Okay, these are called as exocrine glands. Exocrine glands. When they have a duct and the chemicals is released into this duct, then it is called as exocrine. Means exo means outside. Okay, they are releasing the chemicals. The gland is not outside, but the chemicals release are outside. They are released outside into this lumen and from there into the duct. So that's why they are called as exocrine. You said, as you said, exo means outside, but the cells or the glands are not outside. The chemicals are released outside. So that's why they are called as exocrine glands. So they normally have ducts. Okay, and there is a lumen. Okay, and they are release secretion onto the surface. But endocrine, what is the difference between this exocrine to the that of endocrine? They don't have these endocrine, they don't have duct. If you see here, this is an endocrine gland. So the chemicals released, they are endo, means endo, inside. So the chemicals released from them, they directly pour into the blood here. They are not going outside into the lumen. Like here, they are going into the lumen and they are coming outside. But here, the chemicals release. Okay, here they are called as hormones. Here in the exocrine, they are not called as hormones. They are called as secretions. But here in endocrine, because they don't have duct, they directly release the secretion into the blood. These are the blood vessels here. Okay, so they are pouring their secretion into the blood itself. So that's why they are called as endo, because they are inside. They are releasing the chemicals within the blood, not outside like here. So that's why they are called as endocrine. And they release the secretion. These are called as hormones in case of the endocrine. So these endocrine glands without duct, there is no duct here in endocrine. Here in exocrine, there is a duct, but in case of endocrine, there is no duct. And the endocrine will release the chemicals. They are called as hormones and directly into the bloodstream. So they don't have lumen, no lumen here, and no surface. They are not released into the surface, but into the blood. They are released into the bloodstream. Here they are released to the surface. So this is the difference between exocrine and endocrine. Okay. So now we are talking about the endocrine glands, which release secretions like here, and they are poured directly into the blood. And these chemical messengers or the secretions are called as hormones, and they pour the blood secretion into the bloodstream directly without any hormone, without any lumen. Now here, these are the endocrine glands. All these are the endocrine glands. The most important and the master gland is the pituitary, which is present just below the brain here. So here there is a small endocrine gland. Okay, but it is very important because this is the master gland, because it will control all other glands. So this is called as the pituitary, which is just present below the brain. Then, as you said, there is the thyroid and parathyroid in the neck. If you see here, this is the picture of the thyroid gland, and behind that will be the parathyroid. Then pancreas here in the abdomen will be also a endocrine gland. Then we have the suprarenal gland. Above the kidney, there is one gland called as the suprarenal. Above the supra means above the kidney is also called as renal. So suprarenal means above the kidney, that is also an endocrine gland. Then the ovaries, as you said, the ovaries and testes. In case of female, it is the ovaries. In case of male, it will be the testes. All these are the endocrine glands. So which are those? Once again I repeat, this is the pituitary gland, which is the master gland, which is just present below the brain. Then thyroid and parathyroid, okay, which is present here as we said before. Then we have the pancreas, then we have the suprarenal, then as you said, the ovaries as well as even the testes. All these are the endocrine glands. All these are the endocrine glands. So we'll go to these endocrine glands one by one. The first, which I said is the most important and the master gland, this is the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, which I said is present just below the brain here, at the base of the brain. Base of the brain, you can see this endocrine gland. This is called as the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is divided into two areas which are structurally and functionally different. If you see here, it has two parts, anterior and posterior. Okay, so which is structurally and functionally it is different, and even structure, if you study the histology, it is different. Okay, each area has separate types of hormones, so both these have different types of hormones. Okay, so the two segments are, as I said, there are, one is anterior and posterior. This what you are seeing is the pituitary, posterior pituitary, and here anterior, this is called an anterior pituitary. So there are two parts for this pituitary gland, anterior and posterior. So the posterior secrete two hormones. As we saw, the secretions coming from these endocrine glands are called as hormones. So there are two endocrine glands here, hormones released from these endocrine glands. One is the oxytocin and ADH, antidiuretic hormone. These are the two hormones secreted by this posterior pituitary. So it secretes how many hormones? Two, oxytocin as well as ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So that these are the two hormones secreted by this posterior pituitary. So what about the anterior pituitary? It secretes almost six hormones. These hormones are very important because they will be controlling in turn other hormones, endocrine glands. Okay, so the anterior pituitary secretes six hormones. This anterior pituitary will be secreting six hormones. These are, one is the thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, means thyroid stimulating hormone, which will control the thyroid gland. Then we have a very, very important hormone which you said is for development. This is the growth hormone. Growth hormone. Then we have the ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This is the third hormone called as adrenocorticotropic hormone. This is the ACTH. Then the fourth is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. This will be acting on the testis and ovary, this and this one. And LH here, luteinizing hormone. Both these hormones are very important for the testis and the ovary. Finally, the last hormone is prolactin, which is helpful in the secretion of the milk in case of the female, prolactin. Okay, so these are the six hormones which are produced by the anterior pituitary. This is the anterior pituitary here. So anterior pituitary and posterior. These are the pituitary gland, even though it is very small in the brain, just below the brain, at the base of the brain, this is the pituitary. So it is divided into two parts. This is the same picture shown here with enlargement. So this is the anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary will secrete two hormones, and anterior pituitary secretes how many hormones? Six hormones. Six hormones. Okay. Now these hormones are, as I said, the first hormone which was secreted by the antipituitary is the thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. I said it is called as thyroid stimulating because it in turn it controls the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland. Okay, so the TH synthesize and release. So the thyroid hormone is the function. This pituitary hormone, the thyroid stimulating hormones, acts on the thyroid gland and helps in the secretion of the thyroid hormone. TH means thyroid hormone. Okay, the second hormone from the antipituitary is the growth hormone. So this will help in the overall growth of the body. So this hormone is very important. So it acts on many uh, tissues like the bones, like the muscles. So it helps in the development of bones, the muscles, everything. So it helps in the function is, it helps in the growth. The third is the ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. it acts on the adrenal gland, suprarenal gland, which we saw, which is above the kidney. That is called an adrenal gland or suprarenal gland. So it acts on that, and it helps in the release of some very important hormone called as the androgens. Then the fourth hormone is the prolactin. I said this helps in the secretion of the milk production. It acts on the breast in case of the female, and then it helps in the production of milk. Then the two hormones, these are the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone. As I said, this will act on the testes and ovaries. Testes and ovaries are together called as gonads. Okay, it acts in both the male and female. And in case of the female, it helps in the production of the eggs, and in case of male, it helps in the production of the sperms. Then LH, luteinizing hormone, helps in the secretion of the sex hormones. Okay, so these are the secretions, and these are the areas they target, and these are the functions of these hormones. These are the hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary hormone. Now coming to the next gland after the pituitary gland, which is the master gland, which is the most important gland which controls all other glands. Now coming to the next endocrine gland, that is the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is present in the neck, as you know, it is present in the neck. It is butterfly shaped, so it is butterfly shaped gland, and it is highly vascular. As we saw, these glands need blood vessels so that they can pour their hormone, their secretion into the blood. So always all endocrine glands, not only thyroid, but all endocrine glands are highly vascular. Highly vascular means lot of blood vessels are there around it, so that it can easily pour its secretion, because it doesn't have duct, so the secretions are poured directly into the blood. So that's why it should be highly vascular, including the thyroid gland. So this lies in the anterior neck, just below the larynx. As you saw, it present in the anterior neck, just below this organ is called a larynx. This is the thyroid gland here. So this is called a larynx. Just below the larynx is the thyroid gland. Okay, below the larynx. Made up of two lobes, as you can see here. This is one lobe, and this is the second lobe. Okay, it is made up of two lobes located on either side of the trachea. Trachea means this organ here. This is the windpipe. This is the trachea. Here you can see this is the trachea. So this gland is present on either side of the trachea, connected by narrow band of tissue called as isthmus. So if you see here, this is the isthmus connecting the two lobes of this endocrine gland called, that is called as the thyroid gland. So the two lobes of the thyroid gland are connected by this. This is the isthmus. Two lobes. So the endocrine, this thyroid gland has two lobes, right and left lobe, and in between it is connected by this isthmus. Now, what are the hormones secreted by this thyroid gland? One is called as the T4 and T3. There are two hormones, important hormones, T4 and T3, and calcitonin. T4 means thyroxine. The thyroid hormone secreted from the thyroid is thyroxine, T4. Then also T3. It is called as triiodothyronine. T3 and T4 are produced by the follicular cells. When you study the histology, then you see that there are follicular cells, and they are secreting this T3 and T4. Then the third hormone secreted by the same gland is calcitonin, produced by the parafollicular cells. Within that, there are two types of cells, follicular and parafollicular cells. Parafollicular cells produce this calcitonin. Okay, so there are C cells within them which secrete the calcitonin. So there are three hormones secreted by this thyroid gland. One is thyroxine, triiodothyronine, as well as calcitonin. These are the three hormones. So this is the cycle where there will be. So here, if you see here, this is the pituitary gland. So it is secreting TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which acts on this thyroid gland. So which helps in the production of the thyroid hormone, and then it gives this feedback mechanism cycle. So when it is increased, so it stimulates, so there is decreased production of TSH, and then decrease in the secretion. Okay. Now after the thyroid gland, behind the thyroid gland, if you see from behind, from here, So you saw the thyroid gland from in the front. Now if you see from behind, if you go behind and see, so you can see small, this is the same thyroid gland. Under that, there are small glands. These are called as parathyroid. Para means beside. Beside the thyroid, the small four glands. These are called as the parathyroid gland. These are also endocrine gland. Along with the thyroid gland, this is the picture seen from behind, like this in this picture. So you can see these small dot-like structures. These are the parathyroid glands. Small pea-shaped glands located in the neck on the posterior surface of the thyroid gland produce what they produce, a hormone. Again, every endocrine gland will produce hormone. So which is the hormone produced by this parathyroid? It is called as the parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid gland will produce parathyroid hormone, which helps in the increased blood calcium level. So it increases the blood calcium level. So what is the function of this parathyroid? One is, as I said, it increases the calcium removal from the bones. Okay, then produces active form of vitamin D in the kidneys, and the third is increased absorption of calcium by the intestine. So there is increased absorption of the calcium from the intestine. So also the calcium is removed from the bone, and also production of the vitamin D. These are the three functions done by this small gland called as the parathyroid gland, secreting the parathyroid hormone. These are the four. Okay. Now going to the third organ. First we studied the pituitary gland, then we studied the thyroid and parathyroid. Now this is actually the fourth gland, that is called as the pancreas. So this pancreas is the main source of digestive enzymes in the body. A very important gland which helps in the digestion is the pancreas. This gland is very special because it has both the exocrine and endocrine parts. So this is a mixed gland. This is called as mixed because it has both an exocrine part as well as the endocrine part. This is the pancreas. Okay, so the endocrine part, especially if you go toward the tail, there you see more of the endocrine part. Okay, there's something called as the islets of Langerhans. If you see here, if you study the histology in the microscope, this is how it looks like. It looks like an island around there will be sea, and inside if there is a land, that is called as island. So it looks like an island. Okay, that's why it is called as islets of Langerhans. Endocrine, this is the only endocrine part here. Okay, which is present mainly in the tail of the pancreas. So what does it do? It is specialized tissue in which the endocrine function of the pancreas occurs. So in the islets of Langerhans, it is part of the pancreas where we can see the endocrine part. It includes three types of cells: alpha cells, beta cells, and delta cells. So if you see here, there is the color of the alpha, which is pinkish in color. These are the alpha cells. Then we have the bluish cells called as the beta cells. All these are the beta cells. Then we have the delta cells. So these are the larger cells called as the delta cells. Then we also have the F cells. This is the fourth type of cell called as the F cells, green color. Okay. So each secretes a very important hormone. So each cell, why there are so many different types of cells? Because they will secrete different types of hormones. Among them, the most important will be the beta cells. Beta cells, blue colored cells. These are beta cells here. These are many, and these are most important. Why they are important? Because they release insulin, which decrease the blood glucose level. So it decreases the blood glucose level. So if these cells are damaged, you might have seen in case of diabetic patients, these beta cells will get damaged. So that's why you have to give insulin from outside, insulin injections, because these beta cells will not be functioning properly. So at that time, you are supposed to give insulin from outside. There are other drugs, oral drugs, or usually if it is not controlled, then we have to give the insulin. So that's why the beta cells are very important cells which are there in the pancreas. Along with that, there are alpha cells. So the beta cells will release insulin, which decrease the lowers the blood glucose level. Alpha cells do the just the opposite. It releases glucagon, which raises the blood glucose level. So this will alpha cells will increase the blood glucose level, and beta cells will do the opposite. That is the decrease the blood glucose level. That is called as antagonist to the glucagon. Means opposite function to the glucagon. The first cells, that is the alpha cells. Then there are third types of cells, that is called as the delta cells, produce the stomatostatin, which inhibits both the glucagon and insulin. So both the glucagon and insulin are decreased by the third type of cell called as the delta cell. Okay, so that was about the pancreas, that is called as islets of Langerhans. As we saw, this is the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas, and the most important will be the beta cells because they will be producing the insulin. Okay, then now coming to the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland, as I said, is also called as the suprarenal gland because it is present above the kidney. That's what it is called as supra, means above, renal means kidney. Above the renal, that is called as the suprarenal gland, or it has a specific name called as adrenal gland. Adrenal gland. So there are two small glands that lie on the upper pole of both the kidneys. If you see, this is the right kidney, this is the left kidney. Above the upper pole of both the kidneys, there are two adrenal glands or suprarenal glands. The gland is made up of the adrenal cortex and medulla. It has two parts. Outside we have the cortex, and inner we have the medulla. Outside we have the cortex, and inside we have the medulla. Okay. So the adrenal cortex secretes the uh, steroid hormones. The adrenal cortex will secrete the steroid hormone, which is one is the glucocorticoids, then we have the mineralocorticoids and the adrenal hormone. These are the three androgenic hormones. These are the three types of hormones secreted by the cortex. Cortex is outside. Cortex means outside. Medulla is inside. So the cortex will produce three hormones, steroid hormones. One is glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, and the androgenic hormone. The glucocorticoids reduce inflammation. They reduce the inflammation. The mineralocorticoids helps regulate the sodium and potassium level and water volume in the body. Okay, so uh, so these are the three hormones produced by the adrenal cortex: glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, and androgenic hormones. Then we have the medulla, which is present inside in the deeper part, which is called as the medulla. Okay, which will produce something called as catecholamines. So there are two hormones, epinephrine and the norepinephrine. So they will help prepare the body for physical activity. There are two hormones produced by the medulla, epinephrine or the norepinephrine. It is also called as the adrenal and noradrenaline. Okay. So that was about the suprarenal gland. Finally, coming to the gonads, that is the sex hormones. In case of male, that is the testes, and in case of the female, it is the ovaries. So, what are these glands or gonads will be producing? Which hormones they will produce? So the gonads, they represent the endocrine gland associated with the human reproduction. So these glands will mainly help in the reproduction because they are the sex glands. So they will be producing the hormone which helps in the reproduction. So in case of the female, ovaries in females produce eggs, and in case of male, that is the testes, will produce the sperms. That is the main function of these gonads. But apart from that, they will produce hormones. Okay. So ovaries, in case of the female, they are paired female gonads located in the pelvic cavity adjacent to the uterus. They are just present beside the uterus. This is the uterus here. Just beside that, if you see here, these are the ovaries. Okay, in case of female, this is the uterus, and just beside that is the ovary. Okay, they are called as the female gonads located in the pelvic cavity in the lower part of the abdomen. Okay, so under the control of LH and FSH, these are produced by the master gland, that is the pituitary gland, as we saw before. The anterior pituitary will producing the LH and the FSH from the anterior pituitary. So they will be controlling these, they will be secreting the hormones onto the ovary so that these ovaries can produce again in turn some hormones. Which are those? One is the estrogen, the second is the progesterone. estrogen and progesterone, the female sex hormones, okay, which are produced by the ovary by the control of the anterior pituitary, which is secreting LH and the FSH. So these are the two hormones produced by the ovary, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone have several functions, including the development of these sexual organs and preparation of the uterus for the implantation of the egg. So these estrogen and progesterone will be mainly helping in the development of the sexual organ, as well as in case of female, it also helps in the development of the uterus, so that the uterus is ready to implant the fertilized egg. So that is the function of these two hormones, estrogen and the progesterone, which is produced by the ovaries. Produced by the ovaries. Now coming to the male gonad, that is the testis. Testis. Okay, you can see here, in case of the testis is present in the scrotum here. In case of the female, the ovaries are present. This is the pelvis. This is the pelvis. Within the pelvic cavity will be the ovaries. But in case of male, the gonads are present in the scrotum here. Okay, this is the testis. So they are paired oval gonads located in the scrotum, not in the pelvis here. In case of male, it is in the scrotum. They produce sperms for reproduction. Okay, and also manufacture a very important hormone called as the testosterone. Testosterone. What is the function of this testosterone? It will promote the male growth and masculization, all the male features. Okay, male growth, that is the development of the beard, the mustache, the big growth of the male bones, as well as the muscles, as well as the masculization, that is the male features. Okay, so that he looks like a male. So these are done by the testosterone. Okay, then this is controlled mainly by the anterior pituitary, as we saw, both in case of male and female. This is the anterior pituitary by the secretion of the FSH and LH, which controls the testis and the ovary. So even the testis and the secretion, that is the testosterone, is controlled by the anterior pituitary. That's why the anterior pituitary is called as the master gland. Master gland. So this is all about these hormones, we as well as the endocrine glands. So we studied the pituitary gland. The first one was the pituitary gland, the master gland. So this is the pituitary gland, as we saw, at the base of the brain. Okay, which will produce, the anterior pituitary will produce the six hormones, and the posterior pituitary will secrete two hormones, oxytocin and the antidiuretic hormone. So here we have the FSH, LH, ACTH, GH, and TSH, and prolactin. Okay. So then we saw these are the hormones, these are the target organs, and these are the functions. Then we saw the thyroid gland and its secretion. There are three secretions from the thyroid: thyroxine, T4, then triiodothyronine, T3, and calcitonin. Then we saw the parathyroid will be secreting only one hormone called as the name is similar to that of the gland. This is called as the parathyroid hormone. So what is the function? It helps in the more calcium in the blood. Okay. Then we saw the pancreas, which at the tail of the pancreas we have something called as the islets of Langerhans. This is the islets, which has three main. There are four actually, but the three are important: alpha, beta, and delta. Among that, the most important will be the beta cells, the blue colored cells. Why? Because they secrete the insulin, which decrease the blood glucose level. The alpha cells will produce the glucagon, which raises the blood glucose level, and then the delta cells, which decrease the secretion of both these hormones. Okay. Then we saw the adrenal gland. Okay, adrenal gland, the cortex will produce three hormones: glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, and androgenic hormones. And the medulla will produce two hormones called as the epinephrine and the norepinephrine. Then we saw the gonads in male and female. In female, it will produce the estrogen progesterone. Okay. Then in case of the male, it will produce only one hormone called as the testosterone, which will give the male features to the male. Okay. So this is all about this endocrine organs. So if you have any doubts regarding this, any questions, you are free to ask.